Hi everyone, it's Professor Mackey. I wanted to give you an overview of a student sample essay. This essay is also available in its entirety in our online course, which you can go through and read slowly, and I've also commented in the margins. But I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk you through a student sample so you can model some of the things that this writer does well. Obviously, everybody's essay is going to be a little bit different. You all have different topics, but there are some general things that this writer does really well. So first and foremost, the MLA heading is correct, except obviously you'll notice that I've taken out the student's name to protect his privacy. So it's going to be your first name, last name, your professor's name, the course, the day, the month, the year. That's MLA format, so just don't forget that the day is before the month. And then you're going to insert your last name and the page number, and I've got a bunch of videos that you can reference for some tricks and tips on how to easily do that in Word. MLA dictates that you evenly double space your essay. So you'll notice that there's no extra space between the title, which is centered, and the first line of the essay, the first line of the introduction. So for this essay, because it is an informative essay, you're going to notice that instead of making an argument, you're asking a question. That should be reflected in both the title. So the title of this essay is going to tell us what it's focused on, obviously. And then the last line of the intro, which is where the thesis statement usually is, and if you're making an argument, you're arguing something in your essay and your thesis statement. For this essay, you're actually going to restate your topic question at the end of your introduction. So this student has chosen to focus on what's the best way to protect coastal cities from the effects of climate change. So put your topic question as the title, and then you want to start your introduction by hooking your reader. When you hook your reader, you can have a startling statistic, a vivid anecdote, which is what this student uses, or a rhetorical question. There's a lot of different ways that you can hook your reader. Then after the hook, you're going to go into some background information on your issue, and then you're going to end again with your question because this is an informative essay. So I want to share the hook with you. Doomsday scenarios of waves crashing on city streets and people searching for loved ones in the middle of storms are scenes that we expect to see in the movies. Yet the clear link between destructive weather events, rising sea levels, and climate change makes this scenario seem imminent for many of our coastal cities. So obviously this hook is very powerful. It's talking about destruction. It gets the reader interested in wanting to know more about this. And then the background, what is happening in the scientific community, how the scientific community has reached consensus that climate change is real. And now the debate is really how do we effectively help our cities and our low-lying places from experiencing the full force of this destruction. So that's going to all go in your intro, the background. Remember, your intro is a big picture snapshot of your whole essay. So you don't want to get into too much detail in your introduction, just an overview of what the background on the issue is and what the argument really is. So for your issue, for your question, all of your sources should have differing responses to your question because you do want to represent a wide variety of perspectives in this essay. You are not arguing your own personal point of view. You're just analyzing what different sources have to say about the topic question. So all of your sources should be responding to the topic question. Within each body paragraph, you want to stay focused on a single source. So if you're looking at articles, it's one article per paragraph. Within each body paragraph, it's going to be structured very similarly. So you're going to first start off by introducing the source. In this first body paragraph, the student starts off, Professor Jaron Ertz, director of the Institute for Environmental Studies and lead author of the article Evaluating Flood Resilience Strategies for Megacities. So you want to give a little background on who this source is. Your sources should have some degree of expertise, and you should tell them that in the frame. So in this frame, the student says This is a professor and a director of a scientific institute focused on environmental studies. And then the name of the article and a quick summary. So for each topic sentence for a body paragraph, you want to introduce that source right away. This is not the same technique that you would use for a different paper, for a different type of paper. So, but in the informative analysis, introduce that source because that source is the subject of the body paragraph. And then within the body paragraph, you're going to be analyzing that source. So what is this source? How does this source respond to your topic question? Is this source offering information that is relevant, objective, comprehensive? Is this source appealing to logos, ethos, or pathos? So all of those things that you've been working on this semester, you are going to integrate into your analysis. So I just want to read this first body paragraph as an example. I'm not going to go through the whole paper. Again, that paper is online for you to look at. So the topic sentence again, Professor Jaron Eretz, Director of the Institute for Environmental Studies and lead author of the article, Evaluating Flood Resilience Strategies for Megacities, argues that a multidisciplinary scientific approach is necessary for cities dealing with sea level rise and climate change. So in that topic sentence, you are answering the question that you pose, like what your question, what your topic of your paper is. How is this source responding to your question? And that's the general information, which is why it's in the topic sentence. So Eretz et al. Posit, and et al. Just means and others. It's Latin for and others. So if you have a scientific paper that lists a bunch of authors, all you need is to do is state the name of the first author and then use the Latin abbreviation that is commonly used in academic writing. So posit that previous studies were focused on informing the general public about climate change and its economic impact, whereas this study evaluates methods for protecting vulnerable communities. Eretz et al. Believe that a multidisciplinary scientific approach to coastal protection will work, whether it's a small community or a megacity. So that's just a summary. So we're not really getting into analysis just yet. We're just summarizing the gist of what this author is saying. It's worth noting that Professor Eretz, who teaches at, I can't really say that, some university in Amsterdam, has personal experience in the field of flood management, and he holds multiple PhDs in environmental science, which contribute to his credibility as a source. So there's your first part of analysis. You're analyzing the credibility of this source. And this student is concluding that this is a credible source. The student has done some additional background research on the source. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about analysis here. The global relevance of his article. So this is, the article is relevant. However, may come into question since one of his cited studies only evaluates New York City. So again, here we're analyzing, the student is analyzing here by saying that one of the studies only focuses on New York City, so it's not really what happens in New York City may not necessarily be relevant to the rest of the world, which is a really good point that the student makes in this analysis, and then continues on. However, hydrodynamics follows the same principles for storm surge and flooding, a point which lends credence to Professor Eretz's claim that this method is transferable to other cities. Okay, so again, a little bit more on the analysis. Additionally, the Institute for Environmental Studies, where this article was published, is a, quote, leading environmental research institute that is internationally recognized for its high-quality research output in range of environmental disciplines. So then we have a citation here. Within each body paragraph, you do want to have a quotation. In most cases, you're going to have a quotation from the source itself. In other cases, you may have a quotation from some background research that you did on the source that you're using in your analysis. Either way, you have to have at least one properly framed and cited direct quotation for each body paragraph. And this is a common practice in research writing. So anytime you're writing a research paper, you're always going to have at least one direct quotation per body paragraph. So now, like I said, I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but it is available to you on Canvas. But I just want you to notice the same thing for the next paragraph. You're introducing the author in your topic sentence, and you're quickly stating how this author responds to your overall question. Then you're going to summarize the article, and then you're going to go into analysis. So let me just read one more paragraph, and then I'll scroll down to the works cited. So in a similar vein, Aaron A. Thread, a recent graduate with a PhD in Earth and Atmospheric Science, highlights the efforts undertaken by coastal cities to meet the challenge of rising sea levels. Okay, so again, notice that we're introducing the source right away, the name of the source, that particular source's expertise, quickly do that, a recent graduate with a PhD. And then we're also introducing the article early on, although in this case the article is in the second sentence. That's fine as long as you introduce that article somewhere in the beginning of the paragraph and name that author close to the beginning of the paragraph. So next sentence, in her article, Sea Level Rise, Risk and Resilience in Coastal Cities, Thread argues that there are three main strategies for increasing coastal resilience: protect natural barriers, harden artificial barriers, and educate the public about the threat while assisting the most vulnerable members of the population. So now this is a summary, and the summary is how is this author answering the topic question. So we see that Thread has three main strategies for increasing coastal resilience. So this is a great summary. Again, in this paper, you're not just summarizing, you really want to spend more time on your analysis, but the summary is important to do early on in the paragraph so then your readers know what the article or what the source is saying. So then after that, the student goes on to say, to further strengthen her argument, Thread evaluates coastal cities in the United States and resilience projects around the globe, from New York to Boston to Sydney to Rotterdam. And then, okay, so that's more summary, but then we get into analysis here, a point which enhances both the relevance and comprehensiveness of her evidence. Okay. Additionally, Thread uses statistics to prove her point about the urgency of the situation when she explains that, quote, Rotterdam in the Netherlands is 90% below sea level, and then we see that citation there. So whenever you're talking about a statistic that is relevant, you might want to just include that statistic and actually clearly explain how it is relevant. So it's not just enough to say, oh, the source, this particular author uses relevant and comprehensive evidence. You really have to show what that evidence is and explain why it's relevant and comprehensive. So then another point of analysis, the student notes that in the article there are no citations for some of the facts and statistics. So that is problematic. But then the student did an internet search that revealed that the Rotterdam statistic was also cited in an article published by the New York Times, which is a reputable news outlet. So the student double-checked some of the statistics in the article and found that they were verified by a reputable news outlet. So overall, her argument is persuasive. Again, this is part of analysis, as there are other points where she cites credible sources such as NOAA, Yale Environment 360, and the National Academy of Science, a nonprofit organization. So again, we're talking about the sources that she cited are credible. That's another way that you can analyze. And then the student concludes this paragraph by saying, although her argument is largely persuasive, she misses one key factor in coastal resilience planning, which is the cost to the city. Had Thread included some financial data in her article, it would have been even more persuasive. So it is totally fine for you to be critical of what a source is saying, as long as you don't take that additional step to say, I agree with this point, but I disagree with this point. You're not personally agreeing or disagreeing, you're analyzing the evidence objectively. You're analyzing the source objectively. So again, every paragraph is going to be structured the same, introducing the source, quick summary of how the source responds to your topic question, and then you're going into your analysis. So you're doing that for the minimum of at least, I believe, 8 sources for this particular essay. And then I just want to scroll to the Works Cited page. You're always going to start your Works Cited at the top of the next page, so you can insert a page break so you're not always having to space down to get your Works Cited where it needs to be as you're revising your essay. And I want you to notice that the Works Cited is also evenly double spaced throughout, and it uses hanging indentations, which means that the first line is flush left and each successive line is indented. This is actually helpful for if you want to use the automatic alphabetizing feature in Word, and you are alphabetizing your sources based on whatever the first letter is listed. And you're going to actually, if there's a the, if you list the title first and there's a the, an a, or an and, just ignore those for the purpose of alphabetizing. So you'll notice here that everything looks good. When I look at your Works Cited, in all honesty, I am not looking too closely at it. The main things that I'm looking for are the sources legitimate? Are they the ones you referenced in your essay? Did you alphabetize your Works Cited? Did you use hanging indentations? Are your lines all the way spaced out to the right side? So in other words, if you have these URLs and they start to get broken up, you'll just need to fix that manually. And I also have a video of how to do that. I don't want to spend too much time talking about that right now, but if you need help with that, you can check out the video. So I'm hoping that this video has provided you with some insight into what a good example of an informative analysis essay looks like. If you have any questions about this at all as you're writing, feel free to email me, and good luck with the essay.